So, how does a trader go from losing literally everything, their entire life savings, to actually building a sustainable, profitable career? Well, today, we're going to break down the story of one trader who did exactly that. And in the process, he developed a simple but really powerful system to overcome the single biggest obstacle in trading, himself.
So, let's start with the damage. $50,000. This was the hole Jake Ritchie found himself in after just his first 2 years of trading. And look, this wasn't just some spare cash he could afford to lose. This was his entire life savings, plus every single paycheck he'd earned from a new job working manual labor out in the cornfields. I mean, just a totally devastating loss.
And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? For Jake, this wasn't about a bad strategy or a few unlucky trades. No, this was a deep, deep psychological battle. He was, waking up 10 minutes before the market opened. He had no real edge, no plan. He was just treating the stock market like a giant casino.
Now, what's really crucial to understand here is that this $50,000 loss didn't happen in one big, catastrophic trade. It was a slow bleed, a 2-year-long death by 1,000 cuts, just constantly chipping away at his account because he was running on pure hope and impulse, not a real, repeatable process.
Every great comeback story has that one turning point, that moment where everything changes. And for Jake, there were actually 2 really distinct moments that just forced him to stop, look in the mirror, and completely tear down and rebuild his approach from scratch.
So first, a conversation with his dad completely shifted his perspective. His father basically said, look, if you're serious about this, things have to change now. And then, almost like fate, a work relocation sent him to Fresno, California. He knew absolutely nobody, it was way too hot to ever go outside, and he had a stable paycheck. It was the perfect incubation period, a whole year of just laser-focused 12-hour days staring at charts with absolutely zero distractions.
So, with this brand new mindset, Jake made his first big move. And you'd think it was about finding some magic new strategy, right? Nope. It was something way simpler, almost counterintuitive, but it had this massive psychological impact. It was all about erasing the past.
He switched brokerage platforms. That's it. He just moved from Robinhood, where that big, red, negative $50,000 balance was staring him in the face every single day, a constant reminder of his failure, to a new platform where his account started at 0. Think about it. A $1,000 win on Robinhood felt like nothing, just a drop in a massive bucket of debt. But on the new platform, a win was a win. Suddenly, that huge mental anchor was gone, and he wasn't fighting this impossible psychological battle against his own history anymore.
Okay, so the mental slate is clean. Now let's dive into the core framework that Jake actually developed during that incubation period. This system totally redefined what it even means to have a successful day, shifting the goalpost from just making money to something much more controllable and honestly, much more powerful.
He called it the ABC system. Super simple. An A day is awesome, right? That's the dream. You made money. But a B day? A B day is just as important. That's when you followed your plan perfectly, even if the trade ended up being a loser. And a C day? That is the absolute bedrock of survival. You lost money, but you stuck to your risk limits. You didn't go on tilt. You lived to trade another day.
And this idea right here is the key to the whole thing. Success is no longer about the random, uncontrollable outcome of a single day. Instead, it's about stringing together months and years of disciplined A, B, and C days. If you can just do that, if you can just avoid the blow-ups, long-term success becomes almost a statistical inevitability.
Okay, but this brings us to the next critical piece of the puzzle, building hard rules to prevent our own human error. Jake realized that this whole ABC system is totally useless if you don't have a way to prevent the dreaded F day. That one day where you throw all your rules out the window and completely blow up your account.
He came up with this brilliant mental model of the internal battle every single trader faces. You've got your past self. That's the calm, rational you, the night before, setting the rules. Then you have your present self, the one in the heat of the moment, feeling the emotional pressure, wanting to break all those rules. And of course, there's your future self, who's going to have to live with the consequences of what you do right now.
So Jake's solution was to just admit a simple truth. He could not trust his present self. The answer wasn't to just try harder or have more willpower. Nope. It was to let his rational past self make the big decisions and then use technology to force him to stick to them.
So many modern trading platforms have this feature. You can go into the settings and set a hard maximum daily loss limit. If your account drops to that number, the platform physically locks you out. You literally cannot place another trade until the next day. This one simple tool makes it impossible to have an F day. It forces discipline by taking your emotional, irrational self completely out of the equation.
All right, let's get to the final piece of this puzzle, and this is a big one. It's about how all of this builds into a philosophy of long-term survival. Because honestly, this is the part where most aspiring traders get it totally wrong.
We've all seen the numbers, right? Something like 95% of day traders fail. The odds are just brutally stacked against you from the very beginning. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do.
But you want to know how to make those already terrible odds even worse? Just try to get rich quick. That tiny 5% chance of success, it shrinks down to basically zero when you put an unrealistic timeline on it, like trying to make it in under 3 years. An artificial deadline is pretty much the fastest way to guarantee failure.
And this brings us to what Jake calls the 1,000-day rule. 1,000 trading days. That's about 4 years. When you start thinking on that kind of timescale, the wins and losses of any one single day just become noise. They become insignificant. Your focus shifts completely from your daily profit and loss to the long, slow, grinding process of just building consistency.
And you know what happens after years of doing this? You get to this quote, which is just perfect. For Jake, trading is no longer an adrenaline-fueled gamble. It's boring. And that's the whole point. Real sustainable profitability isn't about thrills and excitement. It's about the methodical, repeatable, and yeah, even mundane execution of a process that you've proven works.
So to wrap this all up, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Is your current definition of a good day just based on whether you made money? Or is it based on whether you were disciplined? Because as we've seen from Jake's story, how you answer that question might be the single biggest factor in whether or not you even survive for the next 1,000 days.